Hello, hello. Welcome to the SEO Party. I'm Timmy. We have Naveed producing, and joining us today, our guest, Tom Rusling. Hi, Tom. Welcome to the podcast.
Hey, thanks for having me, Timmy.
Wonderful. Now, before we dive into anything, our first question is, Tom, who are you? What do you do?
It's a good question. Tom Rusling, I'm the founder of Audience Key, which is an SEO strategy platform. It provides keyword mapping software that combines into content briefs and then search result measurement tools. Brings all that data together in one place so you can kind of organize, plan, develop, and then measure and then get a feedback loop. In addition to Audience Key, I have an agency, Reflexive Media, which is the professional services arm of our group. And we specialize in all things search and content.
That's awesome. Tom, I know we've met so many times, and it's always at conferences, right?
Yeah.
And so we'd love to hear about your background, like what motivated you to, again, come to Audience Key, where you ended up, and if you could just give us a little bit of background. Love to know about, yeah.
Happy to. It's I actually have my background really been in digital marketing since 2003. I started out as a marketing director for a travel company in New York City. At that time, Google and like search was really starting to develop and started to build an expertise in that, first in paid and then in organic. And eventually some of the things that I did were working really well, and I started getting a lot of other people asking me to do that. So I turned an employer into a client and started consulting. That led to eventually going into the agency world, and then got really involved in the link building side of things. And so I was at the performance marketing group that had bought TextLinkAds back in the day, which was like the original kind of SEO link building system.
Yeah, I remember
that. Yeah. And then that led me to joining a startup called iAcquire, which was all off-page content marketing and link building. In that tenure, what I learned over those years was over and over again, people wanted links. They knew it was usually the differentiation point, but they were always coming to us asking, well, yeah, we have a link budget. What should we be doing with it? What are our targets? And it was kind of surprising that people usually didn't come to you knowing that. And so a lot of times, if you didn't have a good plan, you didn't have your on-page SEO kind of in good shape, and then you were doing link building, people would always come to us and blame that the links weren't working. But it was always like they didn't have the things in place for the links to work. So we started to do more and more kind of free services because we wanted to retain the link budgets and we wanted to grow them. We wanted to have a successful outcome. And so we're doing more and more kind of free strategy work. And that kind of led me into more and more robust keyword mapping documents. And I just started to see an idea for a product. So about 2016, I took a small professional services arm of iAcquire and spun that off into Reflexive Media. And it was really so I could start working on the basic tenets of what became Audience Key. And so we were doing some very, I think, sophisticated things for what it was back in the day. But it was all in Google Docs and spreadsheets and point ranking tools. And I think we were probably spending 80% of our time organizing data rather than being strategic. And so we just kind of built the system and tech enabled all the pieces that made sense, while allowing kind of a place for a strategist to have the information front and center, almost like a decision analytics for SEO and content marketing, so that they could really be efficient and smart with their time. So that's kind of like how I guess ended up where I'm at these days. And we've had a very interesting development over the last, I'd say the past year now. And that has to do with e-commerce. Some of our clients, we were starting to see, I would say early 2004, a few of the categories that we were working in, we started to see those organic product grids showing up more and more pervasively in the search results. And we saw that first in working with like some fast fashion brands. And it was starting to be like every single keyword we saw, the grids were showing up and they're taking more and more space. So we were kind of wanted to know, well, how are we doing in that? And I was looking everywhere. How can you track that? Like, where are we showing up? Where are we not? How are we doing against competitors? Where are there like opportunities that we're not capitalizing on? And I looked around everywhere and couldn't find a way to actually measure that. So long story short, we already had a lot of the pieces of Audience Key already in place. We were able to kind of pivot and develop, to my knowledge, still the only system out there that's measuring organic product grid visibility. And just in case that's like a term that I still find a lot of people aren't super familiar with, I don't know if it's helpful to just do a quick kind of screen share and just illustrate that.
Okay, yeah, go for it.
Okay, just to get definitions in. So
There we are.
we have our sponsored, this is your product listing ads. And then there's some sponsored ads by, just regular paid search ads. But then you have these product grids showing up, and these are earned. They are not paid ads. And then Google's usually showing, splicing in what we'll call like your traditional SEO listings. And then they're putting in another organic product grid. Okay. So generally on a desktop, not always, but you usually see them 2 rows of 5. And inside of here, these are referred to as product cards. And so you can see it's like, and now you have another grid. So if you think about, and then another grid. So you think about like the amount of the organic search space that's being occupied now. And it's for a lot of these transactionary e-commerce terms, it's the majority of the organic space are these grids. What's interesting is if you really look carefully, there's no domain, there's no URL nested in these until you actually click into them. So that is, I think, a reason that these are typically harder to measure. You're not really ranking a domain, you're ranking a store. And so long story short, it started to get very interesting. How we want to know how often are these showing up, at what frequency, and not do they have a grid, but how many grids are usually showing up? And then ultimately, which stores are showing up and most prominently. So that information wasn't there. And so that's what we started building very late last year. And we've now been able to roll that in as a new reporting screen in Audience Key. And what that's done is it started to really shape an understanding what moves the needle on these things. Because like any algorithm, you can optimize into it, but it's very hard to optimize into something that you can't measure. And so by getting the measurement in place, we've started to see, when we take different actions, what really moves the needle or doesn't have as much of an effect that we originally expected. So at least that way, give a little bit of perspective to the audience on what that is.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I've never seen a measure that, especially on, whenever we used to do e-com stuff. Thank God I've not been in agency for a while. I haven't had to worry about it. But I would love to see. Do you have I think what would be best is like walkthrough use case. Do you have how ready is Audience Key, right? Like, can we
I
can
can
we take a
show it
peek at it?
for sure.
Yeah.
So to be just disclosure, this is kind of a demo account we created. I have no marketing relationship with any of the sites that are being shown here. But we just went and we just kind of at random picked a category, and it was kind of the luxury bedding market. And we pulled in about probably just shy of 18,000 keywords. And what we're looking at is essentially of those 18,000 keywords, rough numbers, just under 17,000 of them are showing one or more of those product grids. And so what this first report is showing is that how many different keywords do each of these merchant stores show up in out of those, let's use 17,000 keywords. What the monthly search volume is represented by those number of keywords. and then how many total product cards are showing up associated with these keywords. And then finally, how many cards are showing up for any particular store. And so it's kind of interesting. We can kind of just drill into, something like a Walmart. They're really strong in this. But you can see this is over time for this like set of these 17,000 keywords, the amount of product cards that are showing up on that first page of results for Walmart. And then of course you can compare like how are they doing versus like a Pottery Barn, something like that. I kept these in here because it's super interesting. But this is the story of what happened with Amazon. As people probably remember, in late July, Amazon pulled out of the paid product listing ads from Google. At the same time, Amazon used to have 3 different merchant store names. They had Amazon, Amazon.com, and Amazon.com-seller. And they actually originally kind of consolidated all of them into just the Amazon. And so those went away and this one went up, but not nearly as much as like the net. There was a net loss there. But then in right around mid-August, Amazon pulled out completely from the organic product grids. There's speculation that either that was an Amazon decision, maybe they didn't want to share their data with Google. That's a very distinct possibility. It could have been retaliation by Google. I don't think so, but I mean, it's possible. But one way or another, I think it's fascinating to think about that overnight. We did a study prior to Amazon pulling out, and across over 100,000 keywords, Amazon was taking up about 20% of the total product card space, and they just vanished. So that left 20% of like shelf space, digital shelf space for everyone else to kind of grab up. And I can't think of another time in the history of SEO where suddenly like 20% of the organic space just became completely available. So yeah, that's kind of a view of like what this would look like over time, so you can kind of compare, one store versus another. And then you can get into the keyword level itself. So, for what keywords are we, showing up, and how are we doing against, comparatively different stores? So I can kind of pick whoever here. And now I can kind of see like, all right, how's Macy's doing? And I can sort by like, okay, obviously if there's a branded term, they're probably getting, they're getting a lot more coverage here. Let's try Pottery Barn, something like that. But we'll get into something that's a little more kind of, generic. And you can kind of see like, all right, like Pottery Barn's killing it. They've got 22 cards. There's 60 cards total. That means there's usually 6 grids of 10. So Macy's has like 6 of those spaces. Kohl's has 4. We can click out and actually look at the SERP itself, and we can kind of see who's getting where. We've got a lot more reporting screens in development right now, because we are able to actually even articulate the location, like what grid position each of these cards are in, and we can track that over time as well. So there's a whole bunch more coming down the pike, but at least for now, we've got some, I think, really helpful first information. And then we can always slice and dice this down. So if I'm like, all right, hey, I just want to see how we're doing for blankets. In Audience Key, you can create keyword attributes. So you can kind of slice down your keywords and go like, all right, this is kind of anything to do with blankets. So it's not just like matching the word blanket. It's kind of looking for anything that's like a blanket, a comforter, a duvet, that type of thing. And so now we're looking at like a subset of those, whatever number of keywords. There's about 4,300 of them in this data set that have something to do with that comforter. And now we can kind of see, where these guys stack up, both on the total cards. And then we have, based on position, and we have a click-through rate estimator that takes that times the monthly search volume estimate. So you can start to create some, I think, relative comparison of what the traffic potential is worth. And kind of like, if you're like, if you're Kohl's, you can kind of see like, oh, wow, we're, there's a lot of potential here that we're not really living up to compared to like a Macy's.
Now, in regards to keywords,
Mhm.
I came across this quote. I think it was in SAS Mag.
Okay.
It was don't build keyword lists. Build a database of intentions.
Oh, that sounds
Use
familiar.
keyword data to think about that in the right way.
That's
Database of intentions. Can
yeah.
you unpack that?
It's a great question. That was inspired by John Battelle, who
Okay.
people from the early days of the internet will remember that name. He was, among other things, I think the founding editor for Wired magazine. Um, I think he kind of, like in a literal sense, stumbled into the Google founders when they were in their garage starting Google. He connected with them very early and created kind of a personal relationship and watched the whole development of what became Google. And he wrote a book. I don't remember when. I'm going to say kind of ish 2004 maybe, called The Search. And in it, he was talking about what Google is actually doing and becoming. And he discussed that what Google really has is the database of intentions. Um, and it's really just if you take all the ways a society searches and looks for information, and you can kind of like organize that into a database, you truly have a database of intentions of a society. I'm probably not articulating that as well as he did for sure, but it really resonated with me. And then as we started to develop content strategies that were using SEO as like keyword as research, I think of like keyword data as market research. If you can understand how like at large an audience searches for things and relatively do they use these terms or this terms, and you can kind of get inside the headspace. And so we just look at it like, let's build not a keyword list, but a database of intentions for a target audience. And that means we get the keywords, we get the volume, we get all the SERP features on there. But now we can organize and we can slice and dice that. We can put it attributes on the keywords. So we can score them for like how relevant and significant they are in the strategy. So we have scoring mechanisms for that. We have the SERP features. We have where like the keyword ranks. We have mapping software, so we can assign keywords either to pages that we want to optimize or important groups of keywords that show search volume but don't really have a place to go. So you can map those to pages that you need to create. And that's what forms a content strategy. But the whole way you can kind of slice and dice that in all kinds of different attributes, page types, keyword attributes, what have you. And you can kind of understand where you're winning or losing, where there's opportunities, um, and so forth.
Nice. And jumping back into the grid rankings, could you explain exactly how those rankings work? Like, how do they like? How are they different from like sponsored shopping
Sure.
ads or organic?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, um, what I encourage people if they really want to get into this, um, you'll see this like filter here. And Google, I'm going to back up and it's like, why is Google doing this? Because this is not the same search result page that we were seeing 2 years ago, obviously. And the e-commerce game in SEO was really optimize your homepage and your category and subcategory pages. That's where the rankings will come in. And now e-commerce is really about the product detail pages. I mean, that's what's showing up here. And so there's all the traditional SEO metrics come into play to optimize for these organic grids. You know, you need to be technically optimized and fast and have your core web vitals, all those things. You need authority, and you need, content and optimized focused pages built around the way people are searching for things. Um, what changes with these grids is these are actually being powered by the Google Merchant Center. And so,
Okay.
well, you can see like I can click in here and it will take me over to a PDP. Um, the actual listing that helps kind of fuel the title here, any of the descriptions that they have, all this stuff, this is coming from the Merchant Center feed. And this is a real kind of awakening moment, because traditionally it's pretty common that the organic side and then the paid media side, they're kind of living in two different worlds. And Merchant Center was always just a place for the paid media team to be managing their product listing ads. But there is now an incredible organic earned opportunity inside of Merchant Center. But I think a lot of times people who are kind of in the organic side on SEO haven't necessarily even realized what's going on in there. So this is probably the place where paid media and SEO are suddenly like attached at the hip in a way that I've never seen before. But you can go into Merchant Center and there's a whole area where you can get reporting and insights about things that need improvement. But the long story short, if you have your Merchant Center feed set up and you give as much data about the products as possible, so you can give it its primary colors, its material, all those things. And you want to have that supported, not just by putting that in your merchant feed, but you need that information available on the page, both as content. Okay. And we can kind of see, like, we can go in here and look at like the full specifications. But you also want to correlate that with advanced product schema. And so where product schema can help in traditional SEO, it's a humongous component inside of optimizing for these grids. So a good solid merchant feed with as much valuable and concise, accurate information as possible, supported by like a very rich, in-depth product detail page that is also supporting all of that information through schema markup, is really kind of the components. What's interesting, once you get all those kinds of things done, there's one other thing that I think is not on people's radar at all, for the most part at least. And inside of Merchant Center, you can actually create a supplemental feed. And what that is you have a main feed, and that's usually done through the product feed and for the marketing, the paid marketing side. But you can then go and create alternative titles and descriptions and whatever you want for the same product. So it's almost like you get to have, let's just in SEO vernacular, you get to have like two different title tags to test against for the same product. And then if you have one of your titles and maybe your alternate title is more in line with what people are searching, that supplemental listing will show up. So you can just get in there, and if you understand the search behavior and the keyword strategy, you can get in there and create secondary listings for all the products that without stepping on the toes of the paid media team. Last thing I'm going to say is once you get those things in place, it's been really interesting to see how important link building and topical authority are. And I would say that, like, for anyone in the link building space, where you're, providing like context of like why this is valuable and what are the gains. I think for the most part, people are measuring their, what I'll call a traditional SEO result, right? So, if the category page from Macy's here is ranking, all right, great. We were on page 2, now we're on page 1, and now we've moved up to position 1 or 2. Great. But if you're building topical authority for like one of these types of products, that's moving the needle on these grids as well. And I almost think it's creating as much or more value than what is being measured in like the traditional SEO sense of things. So we've seen that where we've done link development to targeted like micro category pages that then obviously have that halo effect linking to the PDPs themselves. And as we've done that, we've seen like a very correlated uplift on those keywords in the organic grids. The last thing I kind of skipped over, but I shouldn't have, was I opened up this refining of search results. So pay really close attention, whatever category you're optimizing for. But if like you're in working on bedding or something like that, and you see that Google's got these different materials, you want to make sure that you are using as much as you can those same types of terms and filters. So hyperallergenic, which I just totally mispronounced, but hypoallergenic, right? If that's in here and Google's showing that there is a filter for that, I would be paying attention and making sure that I've got some kind of attribute around my products that are saying all those things. So you can get a lot of insight into what Google's showing here is what Google is considering important. And what's interesting is that, they've made it look like and feel like a shopping experience, but these really aren't filters. These are actually just creating new search queries every time you do it.
So what are the definite qualifiers on how to, get ranked over competition? And then when you were talking about links, like what links should people be trying to earn or build?
Yeah.
I think what Tim's also trying to say is this random?
Yeah, is it random?
Yeah. Do we know, like, is it for sure? Like, if you do these things, you rank over everybody else? Because this is relatively new, right? I mean, it didn't used to be back, because you still have the sponsored grids. These are always there, right? They've always been there.
Yeah.
So like, what like, that's kind of interesting.
Yeah, one thing that's like worth a call out too is we're used to in the SEO world, a success is you get one URL onto page one. And what's crazy here, you can see in this example, it's like Walmart's grabbing like 5 different cards out of 10 on this first grid position, right? So you can have multiple things listed there. It is absolutely not random. It is the things I talked about. If you have alignment of your merchant feed is like, again, you can go in there and it'll show you like things that need improvement, but you want to have as much robust information in there as possible. If you're doing that in conjunction with all like a technically sound site from like all the things that work in regular SEO, and then you gotta go really strong with your product schema. When you put those things in place, and then again, potentially look at creating secondary supplemental listings where you can test out different, title strategies and whatnot to kind of match search behavior. Those are all like the kind of pieces that come together, as well as, again, like I said, the authority. I tend to believe that taxonomy and site structure is really important. Building out like micro categories that are bringing like a small group of products that have like the same type of attribute together, I think is a really good indicator. That's more a subjective opinion. I don't really have a way to validate how much of a factor that is, but we've been doing that and it's been working quite well. So those are kind of the main things. But what I will say is that the sites that are sometimes you're thinking of as your SEO competitor, and the sites that are doing well in these cards are sometimes very different. And sometimes a site is beating you in SEO, but not doing well at all. And there are other instances where we've seen a site that doesn't have great SEO, like traditional SEO rankings, but is completely punching above their weight class in the product grids. And it's because they're doing some of those things I've been mentioning, I think, effectively. The other thing you can see is anchoring a price and then putting a discount in there gives you like, these are all like things to merchandise the page. Image quality is super important. And in certain industries, you're going to see that Google is even allowing people to upload like a few different image views, and then it will automatically create like a 3-dimensional thing. And of course, anything that has movement is going to probably attract, an eyeball and attention and induce better click-through rate. So we've seen this a lot in like the sneaker industry. I think it's an industry by industry thing, but I think there's a lot of experimentation and testing that can be done on image optimization, thinking about what should be in the background, all kinds of things like that.
What about AI generated images on products?
I think there's a huge opportunity there. um,
Like, is that
I don't have
good
a
or is
great
it
insight.
bad?
I can't see why it would be bad if it's helping. I mean, if it's at least an accurate and fair representation of the product.
I guess that would be the point. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. And
Yeah.
someone's going to abuse it, and then we'll have
Mhm.
to see how it's being policed and monitored. But I sure wouldn't want to get my merchant feed banned this day and
Well,
age,
no.
knowing that, on our testing, way over 90% of evaluated keywords that if they're at all transactional are showing these grids. And across the board, what we're seeing is on average, we're seeing 3.5 of these grids. So that means like usually there's somewhere between 30 and 40 of these product cards on a page result. When you get into more niche things, you're going to see fewer, but for these larger consumer categories, you're seeing more and more of them. So the other thing I'll share is that with an early candidate that we did some of our first like optimization and testing and learning into this, their traffic through these grids now exceeds their SEO traffic if you take out branded queries. So for every non-branded term, they're getting more traffic here, and we're seeing a conversion rate that's well north of twice as high for that. So another interesting thing to share that we've been looking at is because you hear tons of people being worried about the AI overviews or stealing our traffic. If there's a product grid in the search result page, we looked at, I think maybe about 20,000 keywords as on a sample. Something like less than 4% of them had an AI overview if it contained a product grid. So they're not completely separated, but they generally are like not living together. So if the grids are here, these are high intention, high purchase like searches, and you're not really competing with the AI overviews in those cases.
Nice. So jumping back to the a question I had about when we were talking about link building.
Mm-hmm.
So with the grid rankings, what should people be looking at as far as links go? Like what should they be? What kind of links should they be trying to acquire or build?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's any different than what you're doing in regular SEO and link building. You want to get topically relevant links linking deep into your pages. I will tell you something I'm interested in experimenting with, and we haven't done it, but there's a listener that wants to contact me and run a little pilot. Hit me up. Generally, you see link building in e-commerce going to the category subcategory pages. Very rarely is it going to the PDPs unless they have a small set of product pages and a pretty stable type of inventory. But so I feel like the link building that we've tested and seen is mostly going to these category pages, and we're getting the halo effect that's lifting the product pages. And it's also just building, I think, topical authority for the domain that's helping. But it would be very interesting to start building, developing links to specific product detail pages and seeing what the lift on that is. Another thing to share that I meant to bring up is as SEOs, we're used to doing things, building links, optimizing a page, publishing new content, and then sitting around and waiting for 8 to 12 weeks to see if it worked. The grids, because this is a feed through Merchant Center, we've seen like updates that we've made creating supplemental feeds and whatnot, and you publish them, and literally I've seen the effect within 5 seconds. Literally refresh the SERP, and I see I see like something that we optimized suddenly appear. And so that's also really nice because we never get that instant gratification in SEO. But if you're going to go like do bigger things like update your product schema or on-page technical things, that's not instantaneous. But some of the things you can do inside the feed will get you some kind of instant feedback. So it's a really great place to be able to experiment and see what's working, what's not. And then again, being able to measure it is really important as you do that.
That's really interesting. You did mention, Tom, to again as a pilot as well, like creating links to product pages. I mean, typically, our recommendation always for e-commerce is always go for the category page because you get a lot more banks. So I would see why it would be interesting to see what happens if you do a product page. But I kind of wanted to get a little bit more insight on that from you. Like, what's the thought process behind, you think?
Just in terms of like
Building a
growing
link to the
links.
product page in
Yeah.
this pilot for grid rankings as opposed to a category page, which would be my general instinct as an SEO. Right?
Yeah. Yeah. That's what I'm saying. I would be very curious to see
Yeah.
if you did that and you get a baseline, obviously, and then just track how that's doing over time. And
It
like
makes sense. It makes
yeah,
sense why
it
you would
makes
do that.
sense, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just because how it's laid out. So I'd be kind of curious to see what how that happens. I mean, I'd be willing to do that. I'm sure we can get somebody to do that
Yeah.
for us. Those are nice
Yeah.
sneakers.
It'd be
Oh man,
super interesting.
oh man, I want those now.
The other thing, well, I'm just talking about it, that you see a lot of instances of it not being handled or set up right is, and I won't go deep into it, but just to put it on people's radar, is product variant schema. And I'm trying to find like a live example where I could show that. Maybe on something like let's see, you get into like something like in fashion. A lot of times, and again, I am just doing this like blindly. I don't know anything about the gap itself, but what you'll see is like when you've got you've got the same product, but you've got different colors. These are all variants,
Mm.
and inside a schema, you can actually create a schema like a product group, and then put all these different things because these are the same pants, just different colors. They're different variants. You
Mhm.
can group them together and then announce that these are all variants and tie them together with a product group ID. And that seems to be also a very important thing for being successful in those grids. And it's a thing that, as we've been analyzing sites and starting to help more and more of these e-commerce companies, it's one of the main things we look for. It really seems to be a make or break thing if you're in a product category that has these types of variants.
Schemas are very important.
Yeah.
Yeah, and a lot of people. I mean, I'll tell you what. Our YouTube video on schemas, all of them, have the highest views and the highest engagements.
Really?
Because people are trying to figure out because they hear about it all the time, and so we get comments on it all the time. It's like, oh, thank you so much for explaining this and like giving me the resources on how to do this because I think it's probably the most complicated aspect of SEO and I think it could make or break you in some industries, and a lot of people don't get that, right? And a lot of SEOs overlook it too because it's just it's not a priority, when it comes to that. That's what I see. So
It can be confusing, and I will tell you that I've been really pouring myself into this research for especially probably the last 8 or 9 months. But
mhm.
where I was a year ago, I wasn't nearly as appreciative of how important that is. And I could go on a limb and say, I think that type of like schema in e-commerce was like, definitely it had a role, but it didn't have nearly the weighting and the factor that it does in these grids, right? If you were just trying to optimize and get your category pages ranked, I think now like the importance of the product schema is just so much heavier.
It is, yeah. I'd like to get some feedback from Martha from Schema app. Not sure if you're familiar with her.
Oh, she's amazing. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm gonna pick her brain about that next time I see her, or when she comes on the podcast. That's due soon. So
yeah, she's got so much great information to share.
oh, yeah.
Yeah, there's another like kind of piece that I've been looking into. I was literally working on this today, and it was to understand the correlation between your SEO ranking and your visibility in those grids, because it's really interesting. You'd think if you're not ranking in like the top 50 SEO wise, do you have any type of chance in those grids? And there's definitely a higher likelihood if you have like a top 3 or even a top 7 ranking. But I was just looking at, and I'm going to be releasing a study on this in upcoming days, just getting the data put together. But I looked at probably around 20,000 keywords, and 30% of the product grid results for different merchant stores were places where they did not have a top 50 SEO ranking for the keyword. So where you'd think that those things are super correlated, they are correlated is the data that I'm seeing, but not as heavily as I would have thought.
How far along are you in the study?
I've got the data, and I'm kind of analyzing it and then kind of putting it together to make it consumable. But I think if barring lots of disruptions, I probably will have it done in a couple days. So pretty close.
That's impressive. I was expecting longer. So what role do you think automation and the LLMs or search intent modeling play in the search grids?
Well, I guess, are you asking like how can you use like AI to help you improve it, or?
Well, because we've been seeing like LLMs kind of like being involved, right? So we have geo marketing, right? That's huge now, right? So in every aspect of SEO, we're seeing this kind of come through. So do you see this playing a LLMs playing a role in this at all, like in the future? I know like ChatGPT does, like if you ask it for a product, it does generate results for you and makes recommendations and stuff like that.
Yeah, and we know that's where the world is heading, right?
Yeah.
What?
But do you see that getting more? Like, is that where the focus should be? And if it is, then what are some preemptive stuff that you should do to make sure you're like on the train?
Yeah, I think it's the stuff that I've been talking about, especially around the product schema and getting as much information into the schema and into the content of the page and associated to the product. That's all that structured information is exactly what's going to be feeding the LLMs. So I think this is almost like a training ground for getting ready for them, is like optimizing into these organic product grids. It's exactly what it's going to work for as the LLMs turn more and more into a shopping experience.
Yeah.
So,
it's inevitable.
Inevitable. Yeah.
Yeah, because I know they have they have LLMs. I forget what it was, but it was like basically it was a not just like a language model, but you could actually do things with it. I think there was something called Rabbit. It was like it was kind of like a smartphone kind of thing.
A rabbit.
What was it? Was that
Yeah.
So basically you could it was like if you go to ChatGPT and say order a pizza, and it'll give you the information on how to order a pizza. But with this Rabbit thing, and I forget what it's called.
It's called a rabbit. It's a device that you have on you.
but it's not a large language model. It's like a large something.
Yeah,
model.
I've seen some prototypes and videos. So
Yeah.
basically, I'm not sure, Tom, if you're familiar. It was like a little. It looks like, it feels like a mic. You know, those little lapel mics that you put on, and
Oh, okay.
you press a button and say, "Hey, do this for me," and it would do it. So it's like an assistant, but it's like tangible.
Oh,
like
yeah,
you holding it.
I know what you're talking about now.
Yeah, I've seen a bunch of those. So no, but you know, I ride a motorcycle, right? So I'm always getting parts and stuff. So a couple of weeks ago, and for listeners who don't know can relate, finding motorcycle parts is very tricky, you know, because there's a lot of options. You got to be careful. There's a lot of price points. You know, there's you know, do you go to AliExpress? Do you go to Amazon? So where do you do? So I, for the first time, had a very pleasant experience, like using ChatGPT and getting a very specific. I had a problem statement that ended up being okay. For to solve this, here's some things that can do that. So I deducted what I think would be a good solution for this, and it ended up in a purchase and some research. So I ended up getting 3 recommendations. I had them compare the recommendations as well, and it's like, okay, I think this is the best overall bang for the buck for the money and for what you're trying to achieve, and was able to do that. And I thought it was going to be frustrating, but I remember how frustrating it is to not having ChatGPT and being able to, because then you have to do the research. You have to read all these forums, all these comments, and everything, like countless videos. Like I had to buy these little grip things to for my BMW to stop air from hitting my knuckles, right? Because when you're on a long ride, it gets tiring when you. So like, which ones are good, right? So I would typically I would watch like 20 videos of
Yeah.
people doing a review, and then doing a follow-up review, and then doing a 2-year review. And then make my purchase. I did all this within 15 minutes of just getting on without going to a single website. Everything within ChatGPT,
And you
able.
wound up with a product you were happy with.
I came in. I actually did the installation on Friday, and I was like, oh, it actually solved my problem. So I was surprised pleasantly.
Now, curious, it led you to like the right recommendation, but from
It
there,
did.
did you go to Google to actually buy it or find like the best price, or did you just avoid Google altogether?
I avoided Google altogether. I mean, I did my validation with forums, and like, I have a buddy, you know, it's like, hey, that's the problem, this is the solution, what do you think? And I got a thumbs up from them, right? That's my final thing. But I validated that, and then I literally got product links from ChatGPT saying, okay,
Yeah.
here's the exact product that it is, and here's some reviews about it, and it aggregated all the reviews in a nice little document. And then we found like 2 other products, and it did a compare and contrast on them based on pricing, reviews, and everything. And then ended up having, like, my decision making was like very like methodical and educated, which is something that I would do on my own, but it would take me a couple of days or a
Yeah,
week even. You know,
it's
yeah.
so efficient.
Yeah. So it was interesting. And then what was amazing was it cited videos too. I don't know how it did that. And I have the chat saved. I'm going to go into it. So it actually cited um, a, a influencer, and put the video. It's like, oh, in his video, this is what he said about this thing. And then also like said give a couple of comments validating that the users, the viewers, listeners agreed to his comment that he made, which was impressive. Like, being able to, I don't know how it did that. Maybe the transcript of the video.
Yeah, it's probably like there's a transcription of the video, and then it can process all of that, and then also have access to all the comments.
Yeah, but like, I was so impressed. I was like, man, it was, and I watched the video and I saw it was there. I was like, oh, this is impressive. So yeah.
Yeah, so I looked it up. It was a large action model.
Large
was what it was. An LAM.
The LAM.
Yeah. So that's essentially, instead of it giving you all of this information about a purchase that you could do, it could be like, oh, get me a microphone that I can use. And then it will do the research on what you need this microphone for, and then figure out how much money you would want to spend on it, and then spend the money and then buy it for you, and then it ships to you. So it takes care of everything kind of idea, which is interesting.
Yeah.
I think that's a couple of years out.
Yeah.
Because the
Well,
prototypes
because they had the prototype, and there were I want to say it was a pizza or something, or but then also he was doing stuff where it was like, oh, I'm gonna plan a vacation to London, and it was just like, oh yeah, downloading all of your calendars, your budget, and it processes everything, and then ultimately at the end of the day you get an itinerary on what to do, and you just have to show up. It's like, oh.
Or it tells you have $80 in your account and you can't get this.
I spent all your money. These LLMs, they don't understand finance.
So Tom, you've been in this space for such a long time.
Are you calling me old?
I'm sorry.
I said, are you calling me old?
No, not at all. You're young and willing. No, it's what's the most common mistake you see people make, right? Because you've been on the product side, you've done agency problem solving, and you've had your hand in corporate, and so you've kind of seen it, been around, right? So like, what's a mistake that you see people consistently make?
It's a great question. I think people losing sight of the most basic truth, which is this is a zero-sum game. I'm going to talk about like a traditional SEO play, right? There's 10 organic results, or there's 8 organic results and 30 product cards, whatever. If you're not there and you want to be there, you have to do something different and better than what's there now. And people start to get so dependent on more and more tools and more automation and this and that. And they don't realize, like, you have to do something different and better, which requires critical thinking and learning from the playbook, but not completely following it. And I just see, like, I think a lot of the original people that got into this space were hackers, not in the technical, like, you didn't have to be a coder. They were like life hackers. They were people who like love to take things and pull them apart and figure out how they work and make, and then optimize into that. And the people who are good at this, that's what they do. I see a lot of people get into this space and they don't have that attitude. And I think that's like the biggest, most common mistake.
It's a great observation, and I agree with you. I've seen that quite a lot myself, and it's not easy. I mean, I think SEO is harder than it ever has been. And you have to innovate constantly, right? It's it's a battle with yourself, right? How am I going to keep up, right? I think what I find in relation to what you're saying as well is that this need for growth, right? Which necessarily is not healthy all the time, right? I love control growth. I love being able to manage how much I can able to do, execute, deliver, and all that, right? I think like people get overwhelmed by what their capacity is, and not being able to prioritize, um, um, while being able to keep up with innovation. You can't do both. I mean, not if you're, if you don't have a good head about you, or have good people that you could delegate and work with and collaborate, because it ends up being collaborative, right? I think it's the most collaborative space, that requires creativity, that requires the level of innovation, it's time sensitive as well. If you miss the boat, you're done. And you got to wait next year for the season to come around to be able to do that, right? And mistakes take a long time to fix. So it's yeah, a lot of people don't get, like, I've had it was funny, like we were both in Brighton. I met a lot of people who were doing career changes. Quite a few of them were educators that were looking to get into SEO, or they were in XYZ industry and worked with digital marketing at like in a capacity, but never did fully, or looking to do a career change and just wanted to come and learn. And I hope I didn't scare them, but I told them the same thing. I was like, it's very, but the thing is, it's very gratifying too if you put in the hard work, and if you're there, and if you're bringing everything together. The fulfillment that you get out of it, it's amazing, because all this hard work pays off, and dividends. Like it's massive. I still remember my first SEO success. I'm sure you do as well. And there was nothing like it, right? And then when you keep getting it over and
It's
over
a
again,
rush.
oh yeah, it's great. It's amazing. I go back to it. Like I'm getting goosebumps thinking about the grin on my face when I was showing the results to my to the client, and just to, it was on the moon that day. Yeah. So, but it's hard and hard now, I think, because there's it's interesting. So and the ones who have succeeded in this have always, to your point, innovated, have changed, adapted. I've been able to do something different. Um,
Yeah. And I will say this, and this is something if I'm ever speaking with a prospective client or whatnot, um, you have to understand that there's almost no such thing as like the full perfect SEO. There are people who come into this industry, I think, in generally one of two ways. You're either a marketing SEO or you're a technical SEO. You come in from a programming and technical perspective, or you come in like, I'm not a programmer, I'm a marketing person. It was like kind of a word person who had quantitative skills and found something that kind of became a nice intersection. And I think over time as a marketing SEO, I've gotten more and more technical and more comfortable in that area. And I've worked with some brilliant technical people, and they're getting better on the marketing side. But it's kind of like I can be on this side of the equation, and I can, get to here, and they can get to here, and we have about a 30 to 50% overlap. But you have to have that team of people to have a real solution. And we get asked that a lot about, like, do you go with an agency, or do you, go with a lone practitioner, or do you bring a person in-house? And the answer is, for those small to medium-sized businesses, it's not going to work out for you. You really have to bring a team that has a bunch of well-rounded capabilities as a team, right? And can offer a lot of different perspectives, backgrounds, and talents.
I have a follow up on that. That's great that you brought that up. And where do you think, like, somebody should start? So let's say if you're a small mid-sized business and they're trying to grow their team, what's the first person that they onboard? Like, do you like, and what they should, what's the skill set that they should look for? We actually did a video on this as well, like like how to hire an SEO, like and we've written a couple of blogs, and I've gotten a lot of comments about this, and I've had people who I've helped, who were friends or customers of mine, who were trying to grow, and they were like wanting to bring things in house, or wanted to take like the right steps. And so I would love to hear what your perspective is. Like, what do you think? Like, where does one start as a foundation of having like a good digital marketing SEO team?
Yeah, I mean, if you're starting with a first person, I think there's a few ways to do it. Do you bring in a more seasoned marketer who has some SEO background, and then you make sure that they have the right outside help and support?
Mm-hmm.
That's if you're kind of going, what's my first hire? If you're trying to build a team, you need that combination of the technical, the strategy, um, the content development, and right, and then and then separately, probably the last thing you ever try to do in-house is your off-page, link development stuff, because it's impossible unless you are really building a team around that. So I'm not really doing a great job answering your question. I just I see in almost every case that it's really hard to build an in-house team unless you're a sizable enough company that you're going to have 3 to 4, a team of 3 to 4 people.
3 to 4.
The other, on a tangent to that, the mistake I see all the time is this, these bigger companies are like, oh, cool, we just got headcount. We're going to hire an in-house SEO and they're going to go do SEO things. And it's like, that isn't how it works. Because you don't SEO a website, you SEO a business, and you have to have that person, if they're doing it right, they're coming in and they're attending all the meetings and they're bringing the SEO lens and coordinating things. Right. And I think that it's commonly not well understood in larger organizations that are doing exactly, oh, well, we have an SEO person now. And go over there and
I can't tell you how many times, and we're doing 10 conferences a year, so every time big enterprise companies, they come to us and they're like, oh, how big is your team? It's like, oh, just me. It's like, oh, who's doing the audits? It's like, oh, me. Who's doing strategy? It's like, me. Yeah. It's like, how? And it's like, there's nothing you can't do. So I'm still catching up to last year, and then they have to deal with IT, who has no concept about SEO and all that stuff. So and it's still surprising. Like, so many lead adapters in the mid-sized to enterprise space. It's huge. I think small business does a very good job at that, like realizing and being able to manage that. But I'm still surprised, like, to this day, like massive companies. I wish I could name drop.
me
But
too.
yeah, they come to us like just one person team that's trying to do all that. So wow.
The other thing you see is that sometimes it'll be, we've got an in-house development team of 6 people, and then they're like, oh, we're going to hire another engineering resource who's going to do SEO. And it's like, no, you don't have one extra engineer doing SEO. It's that you have to, if you're doing things like on sprints and point basis or something like that, you need to allocate maybe a percentage of your resources in your sprints towards SEO activities, but they have to be usually involving your engineering team, not a person. Because again, it's it has it touches so many points of a business and the development. But that's another common mistake I've seen over and over again.
I agree.
Nice. Well, as we're wrapping up, I do have one question that I don't want to miss out on this opportunity, just to throw it out there, a little out of left field. But you studied German literature. You have a BA in German literature. I just wanted to call attention to that and ask you what attracted you to German literature.
It was not what I was planning on, I'll tell you that. I went to a liberal arts college, and I really wanted to. I had taken a gap year after high school, and I lived in with a few different families. I spent quite a bit of time in Germany. I had never learned any German when I went there. They didn't even offer it in the high school I went to. So I kind of picked it up. And I learned a lot of words and had no grammar or understanding of it and was very confused. And I went back and then I started college, and they were, do we put you in the 101 or the 301? Because you can speak it and you can say a lot of stuff, but you don't know you don't know the grammar at all. And so they agreed, let's put you in the 301 and press you. And I really wanted to participate in the study abroad semester. And it was in Freiburg, Germany. So to qualify for that, I had to take, I don't know, 2 or 300 level courses. Then I went over and did the semester, and there were 400 level courses that semester. And I came back and it was, well, if you take one more class, you have a major. So I said, okay, I guess I'm a German lit major. But
it just worked out.
yeah, it just let me take a lot of courses around and other things. But essentially, really what it was a philosophy degree in a foreign language. It was really just a lot of philosophy reading. And that was some of the other stuff I took was just philosophy courses, just because I really found it fascinating. And, I have people going like, why did you study that? And I go, well, I started college in, I guess, 1993. What could I have studied to prepare myself for a career in SEO? Critical thinking. That's it.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
So
That's awesome.
it kind of makes sense. And I'm sure people have heard these kind of statistics thrown around. I kind of just metaphorically, it's like, half the jobs that are, I've got teenage kids, half the jobs that kids that age are going to be doing don't exist today. Right. So, it's like learn to be a critical thinker and communicate well and get along with people and know how to treat people well. Those are all the things that probably matter the most. I just sent my daughter off yesterday. She's a junior. For her first little college visit trips. I don't know what I want to study or where. I was like, it's okay. You just need to go check it out and kind of open up your perception filter on that.
Yeah, I think everything that you said about critical thinking, be able to talk well and get along with people, it's incredibly important, and that'll get you through most things, I think.
It will.
Yeah. All right. So as we wrap up the show, give us a shameless plug. The floor is yours. Where can the people find you?
Sure. The shameless plug is audiencekey.com. We are a bootstrapped company doing this out of love and energy. But for us to continue to evolve, I'm very excited about the reporting that's coming down the pike. For us to evolve and do this, we need people going in there and checking it out. I think we have an extremely useful and different thing being able to track those product grids. We're very giving and just helping people out with a playbook of, okay, great, I can measure it. Now what do I do? But yeah, any support, get in there, take a trial account. I'm very available. Hit me up on LinkedIn, and we could, really, really appreciate feedback from people to continue to evolve the product.
Wonderful. Tom, thank you very much for joining the podcast.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me, and really enjoyed speaking with you both.
Wonderful. And thank you all for listening and watching. We'll see you next time. Like, share, subscribe, all that good stuff. Bye.